I'm Tess McDougall, Statewide Agriculture Recovery Manager for Agriculture Victoria, and I'm here today at Rob Pelletier and Kate Blood's orchard in Beaufort, and we're talking fire preparedness.
I'm Rob Pelletier, I'm a horticulturist and I'm the proprietor of Heritage Fruit Trees.
And I'm Kate Blood, I'm also a horticulturist, and I live here at Heritage Fruit Trees and have an off-farm income with the Victorian Government.
Heritage Fruit Trees is a nursery that's dedicated to maintaining and circulating older varieties of fruit trees. That's how it started. So we're a field nursery. We propagate and grow the material here. It's in the ground for a couple of years and then we sell it by mail order around Australia. In latter years we've also got into ornamentals, and I guess we're specialising in the sort of trees and shrubs that you'd tend to find in older gardens and that are suitable for farms. We also run workshops, so education is a big part of what we do here. So we run workshops to support our customer base, many of whom are lifestylers. They're moving on to small holdings. They want to be self-sufficient in food production, and certainly people in suburban areas as well that want to grow a compact orchard. So our business maintains a collection of genetic material. So we have probably nearly 1,000 trees, and we do have some relatively recent ones, but some of them go back. Well, even the oldest variety of apple we have is reputed to be a variety from 2,000 years ago, and many of them are many hundreds of years old. We keep that collection in good order as much as we can and propagate from it. We grow our own rootstocks, and so we propagate by two methods, well, three really. One is budding, and that's done in summer and autumn. Another is grafting, which is done in winter, and then we also do some material from cuttings, and we grow them. They normally take 2 years in the ground to produce a finished tree. They're lifted, they're sold bare rooted. We have a very busy time here in the middle of winter, cleaning and preparing, counting, labelling and wrapping the trees, and then kissing them goodbye and sending them off to their forever homes around Australia, to most parts of Australia.
We've always been fire aware. I have a personal interest in fire behaviour and the ecology of fires, so that's just been a lifelong interest of mine. So for us it's just become a way of life, and we don't have a specific document anymore because it's just built into what we do every day. When the fire notification came through at about 10:30 in the morning, and the location where it was, I knew that had potential. I just to confirm, I drew a map, I just did all the arrows for the wind direction and the wind change, and I said, yep, that's serious potential. So we talked about it, and as the morning progressed, we could see from the house the huge smoke plume, and we knew that was heading directly for us. On the day of the fire, we were so absorbed with protecting our assets, buildings and so on, that we didn't move away from the precinct around the house and the sheds. So it wasn't until later in the evening, when the fire had passed, that we were actually able to go and check the tree crops. So we weren't actually sure what we were going to find, and to great relief they were okay.
You want to know what's going on around you, and we always do, and we take different roles in that. Kate's very detailed in looking at those resources online and really doing that sort of plotting, and I'm very concerned about what's going on outdoors, what we're going to do, where the guys are working, and making sure the water's all up to date and the machinery's where it needs to be. So we do work as a team on that, but you really must take it upon yourself to know about what's happening in your environment on those dangerous days.
So that psychological preparation was really important. I know at the start of the day, I started to get a bit panicky. I wasn't thinking clearly, and Rob kind of just settled me and gave me tasks to do, which just got me back on track, and that was a big help. Understanding the dynamics of each of you and the strengths and so on, just being considerate and understanding, and just helping someone if they're not doing so well, just to get them settled and back on track. That was a great value.
Because of our preparations, none of our infrastructure, so the house, the sheds and the equipment, was all basically untouched. We did lose a fair amount of ornamental garden, and we did have a little bit of radiation damage to some of our collection of permanent collection of trees. Our production areas were relatively unscathed, almost completely, because they're so carefully managed. We pushed the ukes back from them over the years because of the water competition, and also from the point of view of reducing the fuel load in the event of a fire. And all the preparation in the world comes to nothing if you haven't got a hose with water coming out of it. So you've got to have a pump, you've got to know how to start it, it's got to work. Don't use an electric pump because the power will go down. A good petrol pump, a good hose and a good supply of water. But they're the things: a few: access, fuel, embers, water. The rest of it, just keep thinking about it, it'll all come. We have an ability here with two entrances relatively close by where trucks can come in and drive around and drive out the other side without having to do 3 or 4 or 20-point turns. So that level of access is really important. It's also important for yourself to move around during the fire. You don't want to be tripping over things. It's dark and smoky. So lots of open areas. There's a lot of intact bushland on the property. We've not done any clearing on a broad scale, and only individual trees as needed. But then near the house and around the buildings, we've made sure that the trees are back a certain distance, but particularly important is the lower story, so along the ground and around there, to make sure there's very little fuel. And so in those areas we'd even clean up fallen branches, which is normally something we wouldn't do out in the bushland areas because that's great habitat. That really saved a lot of our assets, because while the fire as it burnt towards us was incredibly intense coming through the bushland, once it reached those areas, the intensity dropped away because there just wasn't the fuel. You need to understand the fire here started not with a continuous flow of fire from the fire front. It started with embers, and it started all over the place at once because there were embers landing everywhere in super dry and very windy conditions. So that's the E. Understand how embers work.
We work very hard around the year, just removing leaves and so on that build up around buildings and so on. And particularly as summer approaches, we're very careful about using leaf blowers, rakes, other items to keep leaves and other material away from buildings. So we're very aware of fuel ladders, which are pathways of fuel that lead up to a structure and potentially into a structure. So we're very careful about managing those fuel ladders, either from the ground up into trees or along hedge lines to buildings, to make sure that there are clear breaks between those fuel ladders and structures that we want to preserve.
It was mainly passive measures through just managing our areas very well, and if you manage them to remove competition, to reduce water competition, to keep weeds out, and to keep grass low, you've kind of done all you can do. One thing I've learned, is that radiation is far more significant than I would have thought. Even a 30-metre buffer would probably be needed to avoid radiation damage completely. And in most places we had that, but some places it was a little closer.
Irrigation infrastructure, he always puts crushed rock around those kind of pieces of infrastructure. So again, that provides a mineral earth break around any of those vulnerable pieces of infrastructure that just removes the fuel and just cuts back the potential for flame to reach those pieces of infrastructure.
I think with any equipment like that and pumps, familiarity. So you got to practice. We practice beforehand. Once summer gets close by, we practice starting pumps. We use two-way radios, and I think it's a bad plan to try and rely on your telephone. We're each with different carriers. One of those carriers was affected by the fire. Their tower nearby was affected by the fire relatively early in the day. But even if the telephone continues to work, getting that out of your pocket and swiping it, and you've probably got gloves on, you know, it's all very inconvenient. Whereas the two-way radio, it's just in your pocket, it squawks when someone talks to you. All you've got to do is press a button to talk. You can do that with gloves on. So I would say small, inexpensive UHF radios are an essential piece of equipment. They're also fun when the grandchildren visit. Everything else here is fencing, and that's been the key one that we've made a claim on. And our insurance has been adequate, so we're going to be able to replace our fencing. But our sheds, tractors and equipment, it's all insured. There's allowances there for the tools in the shed. I don't ever want to test how good that insurance is, but it's an expensive item in our cash flow, and I would not try and live in a place like this without it.
Every season, before every fire season, we take photographs, videos of the contents of our sheds and so on, because we don't have a detailed inventory, so that if we were ever called on, we could use that as a visual inventory. Otherwise it's a very big job to try and list every item in a shed. Well, it just makes you reassess your priorities, but since then, just as the adrenaline wears off, and that might be sustained for weeks and you don't really realise that you're actually carrying adrenaline for maybe weeks afterwards. But eventually you come down from that and you can fall in a bit of a hole. So you really need to be conscious of that and how you're travelling, and seek help, support, keep in contact with family and friends, and just look after yourself and your family.